They mocked her old Earth rifle, then asked how she disabled their entire platoon with 8 bullets. The transport shuttle descended slowly through the gray sky, its engines humming like tired insects. Dust clouds rolled beneath it as it approached the landing zone. The world below was a border planet, dry and quiet, with long stretches of rock and metal structures built by many different species over time. This place existed to watch borders, not to live. Inside the shuttle, several officers stood in silence. Most of them were tall, armored figures from advanced civilizations, their gear polished and glowing with soft lights. Among them stood one human woman. She looked small compared to the others. Her armor was plain and scratched, clearly used many times before. What caught the most attention, however, was the rifle resting against her shoulder. It was old, very old. The rifle was made of dark wood and dull metal. It had no glowing parts, no energy coils, no smart targeting system visible on the surface. It looked like something pulled from a museum, not a modern battlefield. A few of the officers glanced at it, then at each other, amusement flickering across their faces. When the shuttle touched down, the rear door opened with a hiss. The group stepped onto the landing pad. Waiting for them was the commander of the outpost, a broad figure with layered armor and sharp eyes. He greeted the delegation quickly, his gaze lingering on the human and her rifle. "That is the Earth weapon?" he asked, his voice flat but curious. "Yes," said one of the Alliance officers. "She insisted on bringing it." The commander tilted his head slightly. "It fires solid metal, correct?" The human said nothing. She simply adjusted the strap on her shoulder and followed as they walked toward the command building. As they moved through the base, quiet laughter followed them. Technicians paused their work to stare. Guards whispered to each other. The rifle became the center of attention wherever the group passed. One guard muttered, "Does she plan to hunt animals with that thing?" Another replied, "Maybe it is ceremonial. Humans like symbols." The human heard them. She showed no reaction. Inside the briefing room, a large display lit up, showing terrain maps and movement data. The Alliance commander began explaining the reason for the visit. This was a joint training exercise. Several species would test response times and coordination against simulated threats. It was meant to show unity and strength. "The border has been quiet," the commander said. "Too quiet. We believe hostile scouts may be testing our reactions. This exercise will prepare us." A different officer glanced at the human again. "Is she participating?" "Yes," the Alliance commander said. "She is here as a security observer?" The officer frowned. With that, again, the human said nothing. The exercise began an hour later. Units spread across the rocky terrain outside the base. Drones hovered in the air, tracking movement and sending data back to command. The human was assigned to a small ridge overlooking a narrow valley. It was not a position of importance, more like a place to keep her out of the way. She knelt behind a low rock formation and rested the rifle in front of her. She checked the chamber, then the scope, slow and calm. From a small pouch she removed a handful of bullets. They were plain, dull, and heavy. She loaded 8 of them. The radio crackled in her ear with voices from command. Most of it was routine chatter. Positions confirmed. Sensors green. No threats detected. Then, everything changed. A warning tone cut through the calm. One of the drones had gone silent. Another followed seconds later. "Sensor failure in Sector 4, a voice said. "Possible interference." "Probably a test glitch," someone replied. "Continue exercise." The human's eyes narrowed slightly. She adjusted her position and scanned the valley through her scope. Movement. Not the smooth movement of training units, but fast, controlled motion. Shapes appeared between rocks, low, and spread out. They moved with purpose. Armor covered them from head to toe, thick and angular, designed to deflect energy weapons. A full platoon. The human reached for her radio. "This is Observer on Ridge. I have visual on unknown armed units. This is not a drill." There was a pause. Then light laughter. "Negative," command replied. "All enemy units are simulated. Continue observation." She watched as the platoon advanced, using terrain perfectly. These were not careless scouts. They were professionals. She tried again. "They are using live movement patterns. No training markers. Permission to engage." "Denied," command said. "Stand down." The platoon reached the edge of the valley. They stopped. One soldier raised an arm and signaled. 2 others moved toward a hidden sensor tower and disabled it with precise strikes. The tower went dark. The human exhaled slowly. She lifted the rifle. The first shot cracked through the air, sharp and loud, nothing like the hum of energy weapons. One enemy soldier collapsed instantly, falling backward without a sound. Alarms did not sound. Command still believed it was an exercise. The second shot came 2 seconds later. Another soldier dropped, his body twisting as he hit the ground. Confusion rippled through the platoon. They scattered, armor plates shifting as they searched for the attacker. The third shot struck a joint at the base of a helmet. The soldier fell forward, unmoving. "Observer, report," Command said sharply. "Why are you firing?" No answer. She was focused. A fourth shot hit an exposed seam under an arm. The soldier screamed once, then went silent. Panic set in. The platoon activated shields, glowing barriers flaring around them. They fired energy bursts toward the ridge, scorching rocks and air. The human rolled to the side, already repositioning. She did not rush. She waited for movement, for mistakes. The fifth shot passed through a visor slit. The soldier dropped mid-step. The sixth shot disabled a power pack at the back of a soldier's armor. The suit locked up, trapping its wearer inside. He fell like a statue. "Command, this is not a simulation," someone shouted over the radio. "We are under real attack." Too late. The seventh shot struck a leg joint. The soldier collapsed, armor useless without mobility. The last enemy tried to retreat, dragging a fallen comrade. The eighth shot hit the exposed neck area between armor plates. He fell beside the others. Silence returned to the valley. Smoke drifted from scorched ground. 8 bodies lay scattered across the rocks. No explosions. No shattered armor. Just stillness. The human lowered her rifle. Alarms finally began to wail across the base. Troops scrambled into defensive positions. Dropships launched. Weapons powered up. On the ridge, the humans stood and waited. Minutes later, a response team arrived, surrounding the fallen platoon. Medics scanned the bodies, their readings confused and alarmed. "They are alive," one medic said, "but their internal systems are shut down. Nervous failure. Organ collapse. I do not understand." Command demanded answers. Sensors showed no energy weapon signatures, no plasma burns, no radiation. They traced the shots back to the ridge. When officers reached the human, she handed over the rifle without resistance. In the briefing room, silence filled the air as footage replayed on the main display. 8 shots, 8 impacts, 8 soldiers down. An officer finally spoke. "That weapon should not penetrate our armor." "It didn't," another replied. "Not directly." All eyes turned to the human. She stood calmly, hands behind her back. "You ignored my warning," she said simply. No one laughed now. The command center buzzed with confusion. Holographic displays flickered as analysts and officers crowded around, trying to understand what had just happened. The 8 soldiers lay motionless in the valley below, fully armored and yet utterly incapacitated. Scans could detect life signs, faint and irregular, but no energy spikes, no structural damage to their suits. Nothing explained why they were down. The human stood apart, calm and still, holding the old rifle loosely at her side. Some of the officers looked at her in disbelief, unable to reconcile her small figure with the destruction she had caused. Their training, their advanced technology, everything they believed about warfare was suddenly being questioned. One officer, tall and narrow-eyed, finally broke the silence. "What kind of weapon is that? How can 8 bullets take down a platoon?" The human said nothing. She simply folded her arms and waited, her expression unreadable. The officers leaned closer to the holographic display showing the fallen soldiers. Every scan showed their armor intact. Sensors detected no unusual energy, no trace of advanced projectiles. It was as if the soldiers had collapsed under their own weight. A medic spoke up, voice shaking. "It's not a normal effect. Their muscles, their neural pathways, maybe even their heart regulation, everything stopped functioning at once. And yet, their suits, nothing. The armor did not fail. There is no external reason for this." The Alliance commander clenched his fists. "We are dealing with something we do not understand. Bring her into the briefing room. I want answers." The human followed quietly as she was escorted through the base. Along the corridors, whispers followed her. Technicians paused, staring at the old rifle. Some muttered jokes about antique weapons, but the fear in their voices betrayed how little they understood what they had just seen. Inside the briefing room, a group of senior officers waited. They gestured for her to take a seat. She remained standing, eyes scanning the room carefully. One officer, with a voice edged in frustration, said, "Explain exactly how you did it. We need to know." Was it some kind of advanced technology hidden in that rifle? A new energy type? The human shook her head. No, it is not energy. It is not advanced technology. It is just a rifle. The officers stared at her blankly. Just a rifle? One repeated. This rifle just killed or disabled 8 fully armored soldiers? She nodded. I did not kill them. I disabled them. I only used what was necessary. A younger officer leaned forward. Necessary? That was an entire platoon. 8 bullets. They were in vulnerable positions, she said calmly. I aimed at points that control movement, balance, and coordination. The rest of their armor is strong, but even the strongest armor cannot protect against precision. Another officer snorted. Precision? Do you think we are not trained? Our soldiers are professionals. They are equipped with the best suits, with shields, with reinforcement. You tell me you simply aimed and 8 bullets were enough? She did not answer. She simply let her eyes scan the room. Every officer felt her focus, a quiet certainty that unsettled them. The Alliance commander finally spoke, his voice sharp. We will run scans on the rifle, on the bullets, on everything. No human weapon should do this. No known projectile should penetrate armor this way. Explain it now. The human finally spoke, her voice calm and precise. The weapon is old. It was made on Earth. Its design focuses on accuracy, timing, and understanding how living beings move and respond. It is not about power. It is about control. A murmur ran through the room. One officer laughed nervously. Control? You disabled 8 soldiers with control? Yes, she said simply. 8 bullets, 8 critical points. Their suits protect the body, but not the way humans fight. We learn where to strike, what to hit, and when. Energy shields, force fields, advanced armor, they cannot stop precision applied correctly. The room fell silent. Every officer stared at her. Some could not believe it. Others felt a chill, a sense that they had underestimated humans. The medic raised a hand. If what you say is true, then their suits failed to protect them because of your knowledge, not because of the weapon? She nodded. Correct. The rifle helps, but it is my understanding of their vulnerabilities that made it effective. Any human trained in this could do the same with time and patience. The commander leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. You mean to tell us that the human soldiers we have relied on, the ones we have seen as weak compared to other species, are capable of defeating professional platoons with minimal equipment? We have always relied on precision and understanding rather than raw strength. Humans survive by studying, learning, and adapting. That is why an old rifle can still be deadly. One officer, younger and more impulsive, slammed his fist on the table. This is impossible. We have spent centuries developing technology to outmatch humans. Energy rifles, shielding, armor, advanced targeting. And you tell me a wooden metal rifle, an antique, is more effective than all of that? She did not flinch. It is not the weapon. It is the user. The weapon is just a tool. Understanding is the key. Knowledge of anatomy, movement, and timing makes all the difference. 8 bullets are enough if aimed correctly. More would be unnecessary. The commander spoke again, quieter this time. Timing, precision, and knowledge of weaknesses are everything. A young officer looked at her, puzzled. Understanding? We have advanced scanners, predictive targeting, adaptive shields. You are telling us you simply know where to hit and the armor does not matter? She nodded. Yes, the armor protects most of the body, but there are always points that control movement. The neural links, the joints, the gaps in power circulation hit the right place at the right time, and the body cannot move. The armor cannot stop that. That is how 8 bullets can disable 8 soldiers. Another officer frowned. But how did you know exactly where to hit? You had no prior study of their suits, no real intelligence on their positioning. This was the first encounter. She smiled faintly. Observation. Watch how they move, how they balance, how they react to threats. Every being has patterns. Every armor has weak points. Humans learn these quickly. That is how we survive. The room was quiet. No one could argue with her, though some were still unwilling to fully accept it. The Alliance forces had long relied on technology to make humans less significant. Now that assumption was shattered. The commander spoke next, voice heavy with authority. If what you say is true, then humans are capable of defeating heavily armored troops with minimal equipment and without relying on energy weapons. Yes, she replied calmly. Yes, she replied calmly. Humans have always fought differently. We prepare, observe, and adapt. That is why we survive in situations others think impossible. The senior analyst pointed at the screen. So the rifle is not the weapon, the bullets are not the power. The skill is the key? Exactly, she said. The rifle is just a tool. Any human could do this with the proper knowledge and patience. It is the understanding of movement and weak points that matters. Technology cannot replace that. A younger officer shook his head, frustrated. This goes against everything we know. We have always relied on strength, shielding, energy, and numbers. I would be so happy you are telling us all of that can be outmatched by a single person using an old rifle. Yes, she replied, and that is why humans survive. We do not underestimate observation, timing, or precision. We do not rely on overwhelming force. We rely on understanding. That is how 8 bullets can stop 8 soldiers. The commander paused, thinking. If humans are this capable, then we need to rethink all tactics. We need to prepare for conflicts where technology alone is not enough. Human soldiers cannot be measured by the same standards as others. We must account for knowledge, patience, and precision. The human remained silent. She did not need to speak further. Her presence and calm confidence were enough to make the officers reconsider their assumptions. Outside in the valley, the 8 soldiers were being treated by medics. Slowly, they began to regain function. Their suits powered back on, systems restored, but the shock of what had happened remained. None of them had understood what struck them. None had seen the human clearly. All they remembered were sudden impacts and the inability to move. A medic turned to a nearby officer. Their systems are normal, but their bodies, there is no explanation. They have been disabled in a way that should be impossible. This is not just advanced skill. This is knowledge beyond our understanding. The officer nodded slowly. That human, she is not just a soldier. She represents a level of strategy and understanding we have not accounted for. We will need to learn from this. We cannot underestimate humans again. The commander returned to the briefing room where the human was waiting. He looked at her with a mixture of respect and caution. We have studied the data. We have run simulations. Nothing matches what happened. Tell me, was this a fluke, or can it be repeated? The human smiled faintly. It can be repeated, but it requires patience, observation, and careful timing. It is not about luck. It is about understanding the enemy and knowing when to act. That is how humans fight. The commander considered her words. If this can be repeated, then humans are capable of much more than we thought. Entire battles could be won quietly, without massive destruction, simply through precision and knowledge. Yes, she said simply. That is why humans survive. We prepare, we study, we observe, and we act only when necessary. Technology helps, but knowledge is what matters. A young analyst asked, "How many other humans are capable of this? Is it just you?" The human looked at him calmly. Many humans can do this. It takes training, patience, and experience. Not all, but enough to make a difference. That is how humans fight wars quietly and efficiently. The commander leaned back, deep in thought. We have relied on technology to make humans less significant. That mistake is clear now. We will need to adjust tactics, training, and expectations. Humans cannot be measured by the same standards as other species. We must account for their knowledge and precision. The human nodded again, understanding that the Alliance forces were beginning to recognize the value of human skill. She did not need to say more. The lesson had been learned. Outside, the sun rose over the valley, casting long shadows over the rocks and the recovering soldiers. Drones hovered, recording the scene, sending data back to command. Officers moved quickly, discussing what had happened, trying to adjust strategies and prepare for future encounters. The human walked through the base corridors, rifle in hand, observing everything calmly. She knew that the next challenge would come, and that humans would need to be ready. But for now, the lesson had been delivered. Commanders and analysts continued to study the footage, debate theories, and run simulations. Every attempt to reproduce the result failed. The human's skill, patience, and understanding could not be duplicated with technology alone. In quiet corners, officers whispered to each other, "Humans are more dangerous than we thought. They fight differently, think differently, and survive differently. We cannot underestimate them again." The human continued her walk, observing the base, the recovering soldiers, and the valley where the platoon had fallen. She knew the next challenge was approaching, and that humans would need to rely on their understanding, patience, and skill. The old rifle in her case was not just a weapon. It was a symbol of human knowledge, preparation, and the quiet power of precision. By the end of the day, every officer in the base had reconsidered their assumptions about humans. 8 bullets had been enough to teach them that humans fought differently. technology alone could not predict, prevent, or defeat a human with knowledge, patience, and skill, the human sat quietly on a ridge, looking at the stars beginning to appear in the night sky. She did not boast, did not celebrate. She only waited, knowing that in the universe, preparation and understanding were more powerful than weapons, numbers, or fear. And when the next threat came, she would be ready. No one in the Alliance forces had yet seen the full potential of humanity. They had only witnessed the beginning. 8 bullets had been enough today. But in the universe, lessons like this were never forgotten. The human packed her rifle carefully. She knew that patience, knowledge, and precision would always matter more than strength, armor, or energy. The officers, analysts, and medics could study the data endlessly, but they could not replicate the understanding that had made 8 bullets more powerful than a platoon. And as the night deepened, the quiet presence of the human, the calm authority she carried, and the knowledge she represented spread through the base. Everyone understood one thing clearly. Humans were not to be underestimated, and the lessons of today would change their approach to war forever. The morning sun cast long shadows across the base, painting the rocky terrain in gold and gray. The human stood at the edge of the ridge, looking down at the valley where the 8 soldiers had fallen. The medics were finishing their work, checking every suit, every neural system, and confirming that all soldiers were stable. The calm efficiency with which the human had disabled the platoon still weighed heavily on everyone's mind, and nothing about the event made sense to most of the officers, yet the truth was visible to all. Inside the central command hall, the senior officers were assembling for an emergency briefing. Holographic displays projected the battlefield from multiple angles. Every detail of the human's actions, from her movements to each of the 8 bullets fired, was under analysis. A tactician spoke first, voice tense. "We still cannot understand how she did it. Our simulations fail to replicate the result." Every model assumes energy weapons or hacking systems. There's no data to explain what happened. A medic added, "It's not energy. It's not chemical. It's like the soldiers' bodies just stopped responding even though their suits were fine. No burns, no radiation, no malfunctions. Their nervous systems were incapacitated, and yet there's no detectable cause." The human walked calmly into the room, carrying her rifle in a simple case. The officers turned to look at her. Some could not hide the mixture of fear and curiosity in their eyes. She moved with quiet confidence, unaffected by their scrutiny. One officer asked sharply, "Will you explain what happened, or do we continue guessing?" She shook her head slightly. "I've already explained. It is not about the rifle. It is about understanding, timing, and observation. I acted with precision. That is why 8 bullets were enough." A younger officer leaned forward. "You mean to tell us that a single human with an old weapon can take down trained soldiers in advanced armor just by knowing how to hit them?" "Yes," she said simply. "You cannot defend against what you do not understand. Your soldiers are strong and their armor is advanced, but patterns, movements, and critical points exist. If observed carefully, they can be exploited." Another officer, skeptical, asked, "And what prevents the enemy from realizing this? If they know you disabled 8 of their soldiers, won't they adapt?" The human's eyes narrowed. Adaptation takes time. Most armies assume humans are weak, or that energy shields make us irrelevant. That assumption is why we survive. By the time they adjust, it may already be too late. The commander spoke, voice low and measured. "We have received reports that the enemy fleet may have noticed something unusual. Sensors indicate movement in nearby sectors. They may be planning a response." The human did not respond immediately. She scanned the displays, her eyes flicking between tactical projections and sensor readouts. "Then they will come, and we will be ready. Observation and preparation always matter more than firepower alone." The analysts looked at each other nervously. They had been taught that technology and numbers were decisive in battle. The human was teaching them otherwise, without even trying. One officer asked, "Will you demonstrate again? We need proof that this can be repeated, not just once but consistently." She shook her head. "Not here. This is a base, not a battlefield. You already saw what can happen. The lesson is in understanding, not the shots themselves. Knowledge is more powerful than demonstration." Outside, the wind carried dust across the valley. The human's presence on the ridge was calm and silent, but it conveyed authority stronger than any weapon. Officers and medics could feel it, even if they did not fully understand why. The commander nodded slowly. "We must prepare for the possibility of the enemy acting on what they have learned. If humans are capable of this, then any engagement must consider human skill as a decisive factor. Our tactics and simulations must be revised." "Yes," the human said softly. "You will need to observe, to learn, to wait. Only then can you act effectively. Patience and timing are as important as any weapon." A technician asked, "If this is true, then what else can humans do that we have not seen? How far does this ability go?" She considered the question carefully. Humans are capable of a lot. We study, we adapt, and we anticipate. We rely on precision and understanding. That is why a small number of humans can have a big impact. You have seen it once. It can happen again, anywhere, if we are prepared. The commander looked thoughtful. Then it is clear. Humans cannot be treated like ordinary soldiers. They must be considered carefully, their abilities respected. That is the lesson here. The human nodded. Yes, observation and knowledge are the key. Weapons help, but they are not everything. You cannot outmatch knowledge with armor or energy alone. Outside the command center, the medics finished examining the recovered soldiers. They were alive and their suits were functional, but their minds and bodies still showed the faintest signs of disruption from the disabling shots. Analysts studied every detail of their systems. Nothing explained the effect fully. The human remained on the ridge, watching his teams work below. She did not intervene. She knew her role was not to teach with words alone, but to act when necessary. The lesson had been delivered through action, clear and undeniable. One analyst muttered to a colleague, "Humans are more dangerous than we realized. They do not fight like anyone else. Technology alone will not predict or counter them." The colleague nodded slowly. "It is true. We assumed humans were weak. We assumed their weapons were primitive. We were wrong." The human turned her gaze to the horizon. In the distance, sensors indicated unusual movements, suggesting that the enemy was not done. They may have witnessed the disabled platoon or detected signals. Their response was likely coming, though they did not know fully what they faced. The commander spoke to the room again. "Prepare defensive positions. Ensure all units understand the potential of humans in the field. Their abilities may be underestimated, but we will not make the same mistake twice. Observe, prepare, and respond carefully." The human listened quietly, knowing that the Alliance forces were slowly beginning to understand. They were learning that human skill could change the balance of any engagement, not by numbers, not by energy, but by understanding, patience, and precision. As the day progressed, the base adjusted. Defensive drills were conducted with new emphasis on observation and analysis. Units practiced movement patterns, and officers studied the battlefield footage repeatedly. Every simulation attempted to recreate the human's actions, but none could succeed. The rifle was not the key. The understanding and timing were. The human moved among the teams, calm and silent. She did not correct their mistakes or give advice. Her presence was enough to convey confidence and authority. Observers could see that she was prepared for anything, though she carried no visible energy weapon or high-tech system. By evening, the officers gathered again to discuss strategy. The consensus was clear. Humans must be treated differently in any engagement. Their abilities could not be measured by conventional standards. Technology, numbers, and armor could not predict or counter precision and understanding. The human sat quietly near the edge of the ridge, watching the sun set. Dust rose in gentle swirls across the rocky terrain. Drones hovered, recording the scene, sending information back to command. The recovered soldiers moved carefully, testing their suits and muscles, but their minds still carried the faint impression of the disabling shots. In private, one officer whispered to another, "If humans can do this with an old rifle, imagine what they can do with training in numbers. We've been blind to their abilities for too long." The colleague nodded. "It is true. We underestimated humans. That mistake could cost us in the future if we are not careful." The human packed her rifle carefully, placing each bullet precisely in its magazine. She did not need to boast or celebrate. The lesson had been delivered. Observation, understanding, patience, and timing were more powerful than any weapon, and she had proven it. As night fell, stars appeared in the sky above the rocky plains. The human sat quietly, knowing that the enemy may be watching, and that further challenges would come. She did not fear them. She had the knowledge, the preparation, and the skill to face whatever arrived next. Every officer, medic, and analyst in the base had learned one truth clearly. Humans were not to be underestimated. The events of the day had shown them that knowledge, timing, and precision could defeat even advanced soldiers in full armor. Technology alone was never enough. The human stood, walking back toward the command center, calm and deliberate. She understood that 8 bullets had been enough for one engagement. But the universe held more challenges, and humans were always ready. Preparation, observation, and understanding were the most powerful weapons of all. And as the night deepened over the frontier world, the quiet presence of the human, the calm authority she carried, and the knowledge she represented spread throughout the base. Everyone understood that humans were not ordinary soldiers, and the lessons learned today would guide their strategies for all future battles. The base was quieter than usual that morning, but tension still lingered in every corridor. Officers, medics, and analysts moved efficiently, yet their movements carried the weight of unease. The memory of the previous day's events had left its mark. 8 soldiers, fully armored, had been disabled by a single human with a rifle that looked ancient to everyone else. No one had ever imagined such a thing possible. The human walked through the hallways calmly, rifle in a simple case at her side. She did not hurry, yet she seemed to move with purpose. Everyone who saw her instinctively gave space. Her reputation was growing even in the brief hours since the incident, and no one wanted to risk testing her patience or skill. In the central command room, officers gathered again. Holographic displays projected the valley where the platoon had been disabled. Every angle, every shot, every movement of the human had been recorded and analyzed repeatedly. Nothing could explain what had happened, and yet the evidence was clear. A senior officer, frowning deeply, addressed the room. "We have reviewed every scan and every simulation. Nothing replicates the results. Our soldiers' suits were intact. No energy or chemical traces. Yet they were incapacitated. How is this possible?" A medic spoke next, voice steady but concerned. "It is as if their bodies refused to respond. Their neural systems, muscles, even heart rates, everything stopped. And yet no external factor triggered it. Their armor protected them, but it could not prevent the effect." The human approached, placing her case down on the table. She opened it carefully and removed the rifle, laying it flat. Officers instinctively stepped back. Even seeing the weapon up close was intimidating now. She spoke calmly. "It is not the weapon. It is the knowledge, observation, and timing that matters. The rifle helps, but only as a tool. The skill comes from understanding movement, patterns, and critical points." A young officer frowned. "You mean to say that what we saw yesterday can happen again? That humans are capable of disabling armored soldiers without energy weapons, just by knowing how to hit them?" "Yes," she said simply. "Observation and preparation are as powerful as any technology. Timing and precision make a small number of humans more effective than an entire platoon." Another officer, skeptical, leaned forward. "If this is true, then humans have abilities we cannot measure with our usual simulations. We rely on shields, numbers, and energy weapons." "You are telling us those are not always decisive?" The human nodded. "Technology is important, but knowledge, patience, and understanding cannot be replaced by any armor or shield. That is why humans survive." The commander spoke, a voice measured and thoughtful. "We must consider this carefully. Humans cannot be treated like ordinary soldiers. Their abilities, skill, and understanding must be factored into every engagement. Otherwise, we risk underestimating them. Many humans are capable of similar feats. Not all, but enough to change the outcome of battles. The key is learning, observing, and acting at the right moment. Patience is more powerful than force." A younger analyst shook his head. "We have always believed humans rely on luck, survival instincts, and endurance. You are saying they rely on knowledge and planning? That changes everything." "It does," she replied. "Humans study, adapt, and anticipate. We do not rely on raw strength alone. That is why 8 bullets were enough." "I acted with understanding, not power." The commander gestured to the holographic display. "We have seen it once. We cannot rely on repetition alone. We need to learn from it, prepare for the next engagement, and treat humans as capable of unpredictable but precise action." Outside the command center, the valley remained quiet. Drones hovered over the terrain, recording every movement. The soldiers who had been disabled were fully recovered, but their experience left an impression they could not forget. They moved cautiously, testing their armor in themselves, aware that human skill could overcome even their advanced suits. A medic whispered to a colleague, "It is not just skill. It is planning, observation, and patience. They are not like anyone else we have trained with. We need to account for this in every future operation." The officer nodded slowly. "Agreed. Underestimating humans could cost us lives and resources. We must adapt." The human remained on the ridge, watching quietly. She knew the enemy may have observed the incident or detected unusual signals. The next challenge could come at any time. She did not fear it. Preparation and understanding gave her the advantage. Inside the base, officers revised training protocols, emphasizing observation, pattern recognition, and timing. Simulations were run repeatedly, but none could reproduce what had happened. The rifle was not the weapon. It was the human understanding behind it. The commander spoke again to the assembled officers. "We must respect human skill. Technology alone cannot predict, prevent, or defeat it. Every human soldier must be considered a potential force multiplier, capable of precise and decisive action." "Yes, the human said quietly. Observe, prepare, and act. That is how humans survive and prevail. As night fell, the stars began to appear over the rocky landscape. The human sat on the ridge, rifle in hand, watching the base below. She knew that the enemy could be approaching, but she was ready. 8 bullets had been enough for the previous encounter, but in this universe, patience, knowledge, and timing always mattered more than firepower or armor. The officers, analysts, and medics had learned one truth clearly. Humans were not ordinary soldiers. They fought differently, thought differently, and survived differently. The events of the day had demonstrated the quiet power of preparation, observation, and precision. The human packed her rifle carefully, placing each bullet in the magazine with deliberate care. She did not boast or celebrate. The lesson had been delivered through action, clear and undeniable. Observation and understanding were more powerful than numbers or technology. As the night deepened, she walked back to the command center. Her presence alone commanded respect, instilling awareness in everyone around her. Humans could not be measured by conventional standards. Their patience, skill, and precision made them unpredictable and deadly in ways that technology alone could not counter. Every officer and analyst in the base knew one thing: humans were not to be underestimated. The events of the day had changed their assumptions, their tactics, and their understanding of war. The human had proven that knowledge, patience, and timing could be more decisive than any weapon or shield. And as the stars shone over the frontier world, the human remained ready. She understood that future threats would come, but she had the skill, preparation, and understanding to face them. 8 bullets had been enough for today. Tomorrow, humans would be ready for whatever came next. The sky above the frontier world was pale, almost white with morning light, as the human walked along the ridge overlooking the valley. Below, the recovered soldiers moved carefully among the rocks, testing their suits and recalibrating their systems. The Alliance forces had been on high alert since the incident with the 8 bullets, and the entire base had been preparing for a possible enemy response. Every movement, every signal, every sensor reading was scrutinized with intensity. The human carried her rifle in a plain case at her side. She did not hurry. Her calm presence seemed to slow time around her. Officers, medics, and analysts moved through the base, checking systems and making adjustments, but their attention often returned to her. Every step she took reminded them of what had happened and what they had underestimated. Inside the command hall, the Alliance commander and his officers were reviewing reports from nearby sectors. Sensors had detected unusual activity, fleets and patrols moving with purpose, possibly alerted by the previous encounter. The commander spoke quietly, though his tone carried authority. We cannot allow this to escalate without understanding the full implications. Humans are not like any other species we have dealt with. Their skill, knowledge, and precision make them unpredictable and deadly. A young officer raised a hand. Sir, are we saying that humans can dismantle entire platoons or operations quietly without the enemy even realizing until it is too late? Yes, the commander replied, and that is why we must approach them differently. We cannot rely on our standard tactics alone. We must respect their ability to observe, adapt, and strike with precision. The human walked into the room quietly, observing the discussion. She did not speak immediately. Her gaze swept across the officers, lingering on their faces and their expressions. She had heard the debate many times before. Humans often fought by studying the enemy, understanding patterns, and waiting for the right moment to act. The others were only now beginning to grasp what they had always overlooked. One of the senior analysts asked, "What about the rifle? Is it just a tool, or does it have properties we cannot detect?" The human shook her head. The rifle is a tool. Its design is simple, reliable, and precise, but it is not magical. It is the person using it, the understanding, timing, and patience that makes it effective. The bullets alone do nothing. Knowledge does everything. The room was silent. The weight of her words settled over everyone. Officers and analysts had relied on technology, energy shields, and advanced weapons for centuries. The idea that knowledge and observation could be more decisive than their systems challenged everything they had believed. A younger officer finally spoke, voice hesitant. If humans are capable of this, then how many others like you exist? How many could change the outcome of battles without our technology even seeing it? The human considered the question carefully. Many humans are capable. Not all, but enough. Our training, experience, and understanding of patterns allow us to act decisively. You saw one example. There are more. That is why humans should never be underestimated. The commander nodded slowly. We will need to incorporate this into our planning. Every engagement must consider human skill as a decisive factor. Armor, shields, and numbers alone are no longer sufficient. Observation, timing, and precision are equally important. Outside, the valley was quiet again. Drones hovered, recording and analyzing every movement. The recovered soldiers tested their suits, moving cautiously, aware that the human had demonstrated abilities they could not counter without understanding. Even now, they were reconsidering their assumptions about human capability. A medic whispered to a colleague, "We cannot predict what humans will do next. Their skill is different. Observation and knowledge make them a force we cannot ignore." The colleague nodded. "It is true. We assumed humans were weak. That was a mistake we cannot repeat." The human returned to the ridge, looking over the terrain. She understood that the enemy might respond to what had happened. Signals suggested they had noticed the incapacitated platoon. They might think they could retaliate, but they did not yet understand the full scope of human ability. Inside the base, officers revised strategies. Drills emphasized observation, anticipation, and pattern recognition. Units practiced moving carefully, responding to subtle cues, and avoiding predictable behavior. Every training session focused on understanding the enemy, because they now knew that brute force alone was not enough to defeat humans. The commander addressed the assembled officers once more. "Humans cannot be treated like ordinary soldiers. Their abilities, knowledge, and precision must be respected. We must prepare for every possibility, knowing that one human can change the outcome of engagements silently and decisively." "Yes," the human said quietly. "Observation, preparation, and timing are as important as weapons. Knowledge is power. Patience is strength." As the day progressed, the base remained alert. Analysts studied footage of the previous encounter again and again. Every simulation failed to replicate what the human had done. The rifle was not magical. The difference was understanding, timing, and precision. By evening, the officers gathered once more. The commander spoke, voice low but firm. "We have learned the lesson clearly. Humans are not ordinary soldiers. Their patience, skill, and understanding make them unpredictable and deadly. We cannot measure them with conventional tactics alone." The human nodded. "I've been so happy managed." Her presence, calm and deliberate, conveyed the point. The lesson had been learned. Outside, the stars appeared over the frontier world. The human sat quietly on the ridge, rifle in hand, watching the base below. She understood that the enemy might attempt to respond or test them again. She did not fear it. Knowledge, preparation, and understanding gave her the advantage. Every officer, medic, and analyst in the base had learned one truth: humans were not ordinary soldiers. They fought differently, survived differently, and thought differently. The events of the previous days had shown them that precision, patience, and knowledge could overcome any force or technology. The human packed her rifle carefully, checking each bullet and placing them in the magazine. She did not boast. She did not celebrate. 8 bullets had been enough for one encounter, but she knew the universe held more challenges. Patience, understanding, and preparation were always more powerful than weapons, numbers, or shields. As night deepened, she walked back toward the command center. Officers and analysts observed quietly, aware that they were learning from her simply by watching. Humans could not be measured by conventional standards. Their skill, knowledge, and precision made them a force that could not be ignored. Every movement, every decision, and every calculation now included consideration of human skill. The Alliance forces had learned to respect it. 8 bullets had been enough to teach them that lesson. The human paused at the edge of the ridge, looking out over the rocky plains. The stars shone brightly, a reminder of the vast universe beyond. She understood that future threats would come, but she was ready. Observation, knowledge, and timing were her allies. The old Earth rifle was just a tool, a reminder that humans fought differently. And as the night settled over the frontier world, the lesson was clear to all. Humans should never be underestimated. They could dismantle armies quietly, disable fleets efficiently, and survive where others would fail. 8 bullets had proven it. The universe would remember.